with SAFETYMAN podcast. Join us every week for a new podcast. Follow us everywhere podcasts are played and on YouTube. Be ready with SAFETYMAN. This is Corey Jones. Welcome to SAFETYMAN podcast. I'm Corey Jones, and I'm sitting here next to Anthony Eat a Hoagie.
Yes.
So, welcome to the channel. Thanks for your feedback. A lot of the messages that we're giving you are based on your feedback. We love the likes, the follows, the listens, the shares, the subscribes, and all those different things. So mash that subscribe button before you do anything else right now. Mash that subscribe button. Other people saying that? All right, we'll say smash it. Just give it a nice elbow strike on that subscribe button. So what do we got today, Anthony?
All right, so we've done a video before. If you haven't seen it, we did a security guard video about how to get your security guard cert in New Jersey. Corey runs a class teaching you how to do that. Today we're kind of doing a part 2 on that. We're kind of speaking about some tips, tricks, and things you should have under your tool belt there to get into the security world. Some people go, oh, I could do that, but kind of want to explain what it entails a little bit for a couple minutes and kind of go down that path. So yeah, I mean, hey, I'm Joe Schmo. I want to become a security guard. Obviously, step 1, I got to take the class. We've already talked about that a lot, so we won't go too much into it, but you can kind of explain that in our other video as well.
I'll recap that real quick. So step 1 is you got to go to state police website. So if you Google NJSP, New Jersey State Police, and then SORA, SORA for Security Officers Registration Act, you have to apply there before you can do anything else. New Jersey is very regulated in how they license and certify their security officers. So whether you're armed or unarmed, if you tend to be armed in uniform, you can carry a firearm on duty for a licensed security agency in the state of New Jersey by both going through the state's website, getting a background check, getting fingerprinted, and then taking a class like I teach called SORA. And Anthony and I will go over all the things that we teach in that class. So right off the bat, you got to have a clean background. Okay, it's not up to me. That's up to the state police to determine what in your background can or cannot be allowed for a security officer.
So if you got murder or rape or arson under your belt, probably not going to be getting the...
No dice.
Not going to work. Sorry. So, okay, I got a clean background. I've done my New Jersey State Police. I'm coming to your class. What's, a good thing that I should be ready or expected to learn, right off the bat?
It's 2022. What's the big thing that law enforcement officers are facing right now is that demeanor. So the main thing you're going to hear from me teaching this class, coaching this class, will be everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and respect is number 1. And then number 2, know what your role is. Know what your employer, your supervisor, your company, your SOPs, know what they expect from you. Some security agencies want their officers to be a little bit more forward, a little bit more assertive. Some want them to stay back and be report and observed. You need to know that because unfortunately in New Jersey, you do not have powers of arrest. You do not have powers of arrest as a security officer in the state of New Jersey. You are a civilian. You just happen to be in a uniform. And I don't say that to mitigate the need or the necessity of security officers. The idea that they're there, they are present, they're in uniform, and they're armed can save lives and protect property, but you have to know the role that your agency is expecting of you should something happen. I'm starting a class on January 29th. It's a 24-hour class. It'll be Monday the 29th. We skip Tuesday, and then the 1st of February will be day 2 of that class. So you can go right to safetyman.co. You can find out how to sign up for it. And if you have any questions, I'll be able to answer any questions you have and get you locked on.
You brought up a good point because this actually brought me back for a minute as soon as you started saying that. I took some master's classes when I was in college in criminal justice. And one of the classes, we actually had, I went to school at Stockton University. It's near Atlantic City. At the time, Trump casinos were up and running. So I'm dating myself a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
One of Trump's top security guards actually came to our class and kind of talked to us about that. And that was kind of the first time I kind of got that idea that you just brought out there of like what your employer wants. And he had talked about in Atlantic City, they don't want their security guards to be aggressive. They don't want them to get hands-on. They don't want them to get involved in fights or things because obviously that opens them up to a lot of lawsuits. They want you to observe. Now, this isn't everywhere, right? This is just this employer, down in Atlantic City, how they wanted it. They basically want you to observe, report, call the police, get communication moving quickly to get the proper authorities there. But they just wanted you there for that feeling of security, but they did not want people hands-on is what they basically told us.
Right. So, and that's one of the things we'll tell you is you have to also, you're a human being. You're a security officer, but before anything else, before you're a police officer, security officer, a military person, a firefighter, you're a human being. You're a person. You have a heart and you have a brain. You cannot sit by idly and just allow somebody to be murdered or assaulted or kidnapped without engaging. Okay, so you have to have these discussions with your supervisors and with your employers. It's one thing if somebody's a line cutter, if somebody gets a beer at the stadium without paying for it, what do they want you to do? But there's a completely different situation if someone's being assaulted, about to be kidnapped, or worse, a terrorist event is about to take place. Do they want you to get involved? And have they trained you to get involved? Are you trained and equipped to be able to handle those types of situations? If you're not, your decision's kind of made for you. If you are, then you have to make sure that you have the blessing in writing, in a standard policy that you have on your mobile device away from your employer so they can change it in the event of a lawsuit to protect you legally. Because when I train my clients, I have to train them tactically to make sure that the techniques that we give them, that we give you, will work. I have to train you legally. My goal is to keep you out of court, or if you do go to court, that you'll win that case. And I have to train you morally. I have to make you be able to live with your decision. So when you wake up the next morning, you did or did not take some action and it resulted in an injury or did not result in an injury, that you're going to be okay with it because you have thought about it beforehand.
And the opposite side of that with I don't know if you've seen this, but a more recent story, and this is kind of how your obligation to do something then steps in. Did you see the video recently? There was a riot at Harris Casino in Atlantic City.
I did not.
Okay, so you get a chance to take a look at this. It came out maybe about a month ago. Full out, there's a realtor convention or mortgage convention. 2 a.m. There's all these guys in suits literally going at it.
Wow.
And chairs are being thrown, and I mean like a full-on Royal Rumble. And meanwhile, you see it's a cell phone video, there is literally 2 security guards that are just standing around. They're observing the reporting, but they're not doing anything. So, yes, are they doing what their boss says? Yes. But guess what? The one guy that gets beaten real bad and his lawyer gets a hold of that video and sees that you are doing nothing to help this situation, I guarantee there is going to be a lawsuit against that casino, and that security guard or 2 will be named in that lawsuit for not helping whatsoever.
Yes, but don't let that scare you. Now, the odds
I'm
giving
both sides of the story.
Are insurmountable. It could be, me back when I was a law enforcement officer and my partner with guns and nightsticks and body armor and all that stuff, and there's 60, 70, 80 people drunk throwing chairs around. It may not be a winnable situation for me to try to go in and get that person who's involved in a fight. Maybe I can, maybe I can't. You need to be able to articulate it, which means be able to explain it in writing exactly why, based on your policy and your procedure, your training and your experience, and the rules and regulations that you're operating under, and then the situation as you saw it at the time. Not 20/20 hindsight, but as you saw it and observed it at the time. And we'll teach you all of that in my class, how to document your actions, how to write a proper report so it can be read by somebody other than you, and so it can paint the picture, whether it be in a criminal court or, as Anthony alluded to, in civil court, when the estate of a person who may be deceased or the actual injured person wants to bring a lawsuit against you.
So I wanted to also bring up a couple things that would probably help boost your resume trying to get a job, and 2 things that I thought of. One, having EMS capabilities, first responder EMS capabilities. And what I mean by that, simply like CPR, right? How to use a tourniquet. So we do a video, if you haven't seen it yet, talking about that. You can go check that out as well. But having some of those basic survival things, because a lot of I use casinos as references, obviously, because I'm in a lot of casinos. But there's a lot of heart attacks. There's a lot of older people that fall and do things. So you having that capability of being trained in CPR, I would assume, would be a good resume booster to have under your belt as well.
Absolutely does. Being a lifeguard, being a EMT, stop the bleed, AED for a defibrillator, CPR, all those different types of things are going to make you more marketable than the next 10 or 15 people that may be applying for the same job. And if you have, between now and the time you actually become a security officer, if you've done something and you have a letter of recommendation or a commendation, get that, dust it off, save that, make it a PDF on your computer, and attach that to your resume or your letter of intent to show prospective employers that under pressure you acted and you acted appropriately and you saved a life, or you kept somebody alive long enough to get them into an ambulance or to a hospital, or that you weren't afraid to jump into the water to go help somebody, to show that you will act according to policy under pressure. So save that information, and if it wasn't a letter of recommendation, if it wasn't documented anywhere, you can still document it and tell that story.
The other one that I was thinking was kind of know your environment. And for example, if you're in an area where you're trying to get hired and there's a lot of, Hispanics, learning another language, learning at least basics of the language. I'm not even talking being fluent. I'm talking about explaining, asking how old someone is, what their name is, where do they live, what prior medical issues do they have, how can they help you? Like couple simple phrases go a long way in trying to figure out a situation quickly. So I think being bilingual, or at least having some language under your belt that could help, that's definitely something that an employer is going to look at, especially if they have a high majority of clients that are coming in that maybe do not speak English.
Exactly. That's a huge point. That's a good point, is being able to communicate and deal with your prospective clientele. So in casinos, the clientele is different than at concerts, which is different than at an Eagles game, which is different than running the midnight shift at the back of a loading dock, and you're only dealing with 4 or 5 truck drivers, and you're just basically there to make sure nobody, smashes in and steals 1,000 boxes. All 4 of those require a similar skill set, but all 4 of those also can be made better by having additional skill sets, like that being bilingual, like that having the first responder training and so forth.
So there were just a couple kinds of tips and tricks that I thought of. I don't know if there's any others that you have off the top of your head, but just a couple that I had thought of, But the other, and the other thing too is, like you kind of hinted at it earlier, but without saying it too much, if you think you're gonna be, SWAT team Joe, like kicking in the doors here, like that's, like you said, most security guards are not looking for it. So being able to de-escalate, that's the key word right now. That's the word you want to use at the interview, because that's what they're all looking for right now. De-escalate, de-escalate, de-escalate. Because that's what I think. That's what an interview is going to ask you. Hey, you're thrown in this situation. How are you going to de-escalate this situation?
Right.
So be able to be calm, talk through things. They don't want hotheads. They don't want people with tempers. So if that's you, go get a therapist. Like, that's my next tip.
Yeah.
Go get a therapist.
If your idea of de-escalation is putting your hand on your gun, you're not de-escalating. Okay. So there's a couple of good books or courses you can take. So I'm also a verbal judo instructor. So if you wanted to take the verbal judo course, you can do that beforehand. And that's a great piece of paper that shows up with your resume, with your cover letter, with your letter of intent, with those other commendations that we talked about from other jobs. Let's say your other job wasn't even had anything to do with security. You worked at a retail store, you worked at a gas station, or you were a lifeguard over the summer or something like that. And you had some experiences where you had to, usher people away, clear an area. There was fireworks. There was a fire. A sudden thunderstorm came, and you had to put in a certain protocol to evacuate the pool, and you did it, and you did it effectively. Those are things you want to document, because if I'm the prospective employer, I'm going to ask you, why should I pick you as my security guard? And you're going to need to tell me, well, here's what I've done. I can't predict the future, Mr. Jones, safety man, but I can say that I worked at this location and hot grease got on somebody, and I immediately put them under cold water, mitigated the burns, and something happened. And that was on around this month, around this time, whatever it is. And second of all, if you can't take the course, you can read the books. There's 2 good books that I recommend anybody that's going to be a first responder. One is Verbal Judo, and number 2 is Left of Bang. Left of Bang.
I have both of them.
And they're great books, aren't they? They're great books. And the concepts, without beating them to death, because you're going to love them, is they really teach you how to pick out the things you're supposed to focus on when you're a security guard, is what Left of Bang does. And then what Verbal Judo does is, okay, now I have to go make contact with this anomaly or with this potential contact. How am I going to initiate contact and then get this initial contact to comply voluntarily with whatever our law enforcement objectives are?
So anyway, that's our tips and tricks a little bit. If you have some more, please, and especially if you're a security guard already, maybe some of the things that have helped you, get into the field, because there's a lot of people looking to get into the security world and they want to know how to do it. So drop the comments down below.
I got two things.
So, what's that?
I got two things.
Go ahead. Hold on. Go.
When you show up for your interview,
Here we go.
wear your best clothes. Wear a suit, wear a tie. If you don't know how to tie a tie, get somebody to show you how to tie a tie. Make sure everything fits, it's tucked in, you are cleaned and pressed, and that suit came from the dry cleaner, not from the back of your closet for 4 years, okay? Make sure you look the part. I want you to look like a Secret Service agent when you show up for your interview. And number two, when you wear your uniform every day, you are a picture of that company that you're representing. You want to wear it proudly. You want to have that uniform pressed.
Tuck
you
your
want
shirt
to
in.
tuck your shirt in all the way around. Make sure your pants fit. Wear a belt. Wear your uniform proudly, okay? A lot of security guards want to go on to be law enforcement. And the first question I'm going to ask because I've done background investigations for law enforcement officers who were security guards, I go right to the security supervisor. Would you recommend this person as a law enforcement officer, yes or no? Show me pictures of them in their uniform. Show me a video of them from your CCTV of them engaging somebody and doing something. If their hands are in their pockets, they just look sloppy and all that stuff, that's going to stay with you forever. So your first day has got to be, I know you're going to make mistakes, but your first day you got to be locked on and doing it the way they tell you to do it and look cleaned and pressed. So when that citizen comes up to you and asks you for directions, say, yes, ma'am, I know exactly where that is, okay? What I want you to do is go that way. You're going to see a giant bunny rabbit. Turn there and you're in Easter egg land.
I was like, what?
I don't know.
Oh, wow.
Got to keep it light. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys again. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you follow us. You can follow me on Twitter at Eat a Hoagie. You can follow Corey on his website. All his social media, I believe, is on there as well. SAFETYMAN.co.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys. Thank you. And we will see you on the next one.
Be ready.